How we doing? Welcome to the show, IB Nation Sports Talk. We're up and rolling along with Jesse Stiers. I'm Sean Stiers. It has been raining here in South Bend for a couple of days. Cold rain in South Bend. What's it like in Cleveland right now, Jess?
It is very cold, very dreary, very dark. I don't think the sun's been outside all day. It was sleeting slash hailing this morning. So it's just been an overall bad day. Not great weather. Very bleak outside, very cold. I think I've left the house like one time today, and that's just to take the dog outside. So
I don't blame you. I checked the mail. That was about it.
I actually had to turn the heat on today too. I was trying to go as long as possible without turning on the heat. Was hoping to make it to November, but I took a peek at the thermostat and it said 59 degrees. The girlfriend gets back from Puerto Rico today, so I knew that wouldn't fly. So I've cranked it up to about 66 today, 67.
Got a little balmy. All right. I like it. Got to warm it up. The Guardians not faring well against the Yankees this afternoon. Both Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge with home runs in the Bronx. Maybe a questionable decision by one of the all-time great managers, Tito Francona.
Yeah, I'm not too sure why they started Savali today. I know a lot of people aren't huge baseball fans here, but they shouldn't have started Savali. And Cleveland, went through a lot last night. I don't know if you heard, but their team did not stay in a hotel together. New York couldn't accompany.
I heard that.
They had to split across multiple hotels just to get their whole team to get somewhere to stay. I guess there was nowhere in New York that could take a whole team. And I think it's kind of crazy that the MLS soccer game happened last night in New York, but the baseball game couldn't be played. There's just a lot of weird things kind of going around. Yankees refusing to sell tickets to any Ohio addresses. Also, I saw kind of came out. So,
well, the Padres were doing something like that as well with the Dodgers fans, and I think a lot of and the Brewers did that like a year or two back with the Cubs. Once the Brewers decided, hey, we can be good, they said we're not gonna, we'll take Cubs fans' monies when we suck year after year, when these fans come up, not very far away to come to our games, but as soon as we're good, we're gonna start blocking them out of here. We don't want them anymore. So I think it's hilarious when teams do that.
Yeah, so there's just a lot of kind of fishiness going around New York right now, but hopefully the Guards can rally here. Not looking too great, but hopefully they can get it done here in the last few innings.
Jonathan's already he's coming out with guns blazing on
pressing buttons.
The Cowboys. I know. I mean, it's pretty tough for the Eagles to beat a backup, but I'm excited for the matchup. I don't know about you. I think that
I think it set the stage for a really good Christmas Eve game. Cooper Rush is a backup quarterback. He threw 3 interceptions. Gave Eagles kind of midfield possession every time with those interceptions. And to me, the biggest thing is the Eagles ran RPO all game and they made Micah Parsons the read man. To me, I'm not sure why you would kind of show your hand in this game where a backup quarterback's going, how you're going to play the Cowboys defense. It only gives the Cowboys film to kind of, do what they do best. That's really funny though that Jonathan Gabrick thinks that, because Dak is 7-3 against the Eagles. He's 9-1 against I think the Commanders, and I don't think he's lost to New York yet. So if he's a backup quarterback, I think a lot of people would take those kind of numbers.
That's right.
He has 3 losses in like 5 or 6 years against NFC East teams.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that the Eagles showed the way they want to defend Micah Parsons to give Dan Quinn something to get ready for the next time around.
They're just gonna chew on that until Christmas Eve. It's gonna eat at them. Micah Parsons is a competitor. He's gonna be thinking about how he can play, but it's just it'll be a lot of fun. I'm glad that game happened. And I think that they're going to play again a third time, come playoffs, and that's when it's really going to matter.
Yeah, I'd take 2 losses in the regular season if they do play in the playoffs and the Cowboys are able to win that game. But that's a long way away. And, as Michael says, NFC East been horrible until this year. That's right. And you've got 3 legitimate teams in the division right now, So I think it's looking up for the division. And then there's still Washington, who's, the rest of the NFL wants to get rid of their owner. So, hey, we can save some of the NFL stuff for later. We've got plenty of Notre Dame football to talk about today, but Did you know on this date, 1924, a man named Grantland Rice penned these now famous words? Outlined against a blue-gray October sky, the four horsemen rode again. In dramatic lore, they're known as famine, pestilence, destruction, and death. These are only aliases. Their real names are Stoldrare, Miller, Crowley, and Layden. They formed the crest of the South Bend Cyclone, before which another fighting Army team was swept over the precipice at the Polo Grounds this afternoon. Classic. And I remember when I was at the first radio station I worked at here in town many years ago, we had the great Harry Callis, former NFL Films guy and Philadelphia Phillies longtime radio voice. He recorded that for us, and it was golden. We got to listen to him while he recorded it, and we used it on our pregame shows and all that stuff. And then somebody erased it at some point. I would have loved to have had a copy of Harry Callis reading that. But 1924, on this date in 1924, nearly 100 years ago. So we spent a lot of time on yesterday's show, Jess. Oh, and before we continue, the usual spiel, hit that like button if you would, subscribe, rate, review to help out Irish Breakdown in the channel. It continues to grow. We're up almost to 12,000 subscribers right now. So thanks to all the subscribers. If you're not subscribed, just subscribe, jump on in, join the crowd. But we spent a lot of time on yesterday's show basically trying to get the stink of Saturday's loss off of us to Stanford. I don't think it worked. So we've got plenty of time today to dig a little deeper even. So when you look at Notre Dame offensively, here are some of the numbers that the Fighting Irish offense currently has right now. They are 80th in total offense, 51st in run offense, 101st in passing offense, 60th in pass efficiency offense. And that took a bit of a hit with Drew Pine's game. And obviously the two games that Tyler Buckner started didn't help that either. 66th in red zone offense and 99th in scoring. So like when you look at those numbers, Jess, they're not very good right now, obviously.
Yeah, so offensively, there's just I would say the number one problem right now is just the rhythm between game to game. Sometimes we see them look really good in some, obviously North Carolina, BYU, Cal was, a right step, but there were still a lot of sloppy things that happened in that game. And now we've gone back down to kind of this sloppy offense. And so I took a deeper dive into Notre Dame's. I watched every drive over and I charted. And the things that I was charting were personnel, splitter wing, meaning, Mayer, that is just a Mayer thing. Like when Mayer's on the field, are they splitting him out or are they putting him at a wing? Because that's usually the two positions at which he's lining up. I looked at, pre-snap motion, obviously run or pass, and then the result of the play, gain or loss.
So does Mayer on the wing typically mean they're about to run the football?
I haven't, unfortunately, I got a lot of it, what I wanted done, but I didn't go into like the analytics of,
right.
Wing means run. And then I want to, though, that's the next step. That's the kind of looking at, okay, if we're in 11 personnel and they go wing, are they more often to run? And what is the result going to be, because of that, specific, 11 personnel, wing, motion, run, what does that outcome lead to? So that is my next step. But I was today more looking at trends, looking at first down was a big thing I looked at. And then another big thing I looked at, because I know it's the big topic right now. Is it execution or is it coach-led failures? Meaning, is Tommy putting them
preparation, game planning?
Is Tommy putting them, calling the right plays for this offense to be able, to do the things that they're supposed to? So I looked at a lot of patterns today, looking at, okay, first down, this is what they were, pattern was. Third down, this is the pattern. And then overall, was the play a failure because of bad execution? Or do I believe that they called a bad play that was, put them in a bad spot, set them up for a bad play? I would say the number one example that comes to mind when I say, Tommy called a bad play and put him in a bad spot was the 4th and 1 on the goal line. There's no reason to run the Jaden Thomas jet sweep around. That's a play.
The 4th and 2, you mean? 4th and 2.
The 4th and 2. Yeah. And that's a play where I'd say, Tommy failed them because they have no business running a jet sweep on 4th and 2 like that. I think there's so many more different plays you can run in that kind of situation. But that's the way I was looking at it.
I was going to say we've got that for we're going to talk about that in rapid fire. So we will save the 4th and 2 for rapid fire so we can jump deeper into that one. But that is coming because I definitely have some thoughts on that. I don't want to blow it all now because I know you've got plenty of plenty more to talk about beyond just that. So, but I agree with the general sentiment. And specifically going back and watching that again, I just shook my head. Again, when you look at personnel and formation and who's doing what, and it just drove me nuts watching that. But so where do you want to start? Because I know you had some stuff you wanted to diagram. First, let's just start with this, I guess. What inconsistencies are you seeing in Notre Dame's offense now as you've kind of taken a little bit of a deeper dive?
I'd say the number one inconsistency that I've seen is what made them good against North Carolina and good against BYU compared to this last game is first down. First down is the most critical drive or most critical point of any Notre Dame drive. That's every first down. It's not just the first down to start the drive. It's every first down. So, for instance, Notre Dame's first drive, what does it start with? A -5 penalty. That's going to get you behind the sticks. And in this offense, when you're trying to run the ball and you're trying to get in second and favorable, third and favorable, you can't take minus plays and 0-yard plays on first down. And so the biggest inconsistency I saw was execution or just success on first down, I would say. That's the number one inconsistency is BYU and North Carolina, they got ahead on first down. They made, they set themselves up for very easy second and third. And that wasn't the case against Stanford. There was a lot of things going wrong on first down, and that's a tribute to, players not executing. And then, like I said, Tommy just calling bad plays. Why are we doing these kind of things? And then another big thing that I looked at inconsistency-wise was formation. A lot of this week was just dominated by 11 and 12 personnel for some reason. They ran like 1 or 2 plays out of, 2-back personnel. And it seemed like last week against BYU, their first 3 drives, they were just rotating out in and out of all these different formations. And that's what they need to be doing. Jason Garrett made a good point when they played BYU. Notre Dame needs to show Tommy Rees.
Hold it. Just for the crowd. Jason Garrett made a good point. Okay, go ahead, Jason. Relay Jason Garrett's point.
Yeah, Jason Garrett made a good point against BYU. On those first few drives, they were coming out in a lot of different formations, a lot of different, seeing what's working, seeing what's not going to work. And that's what I like. I don't understand why Tommy went away from that in this game because, their first 3 possessions was just nothing but 11 and 12 personnel, 11 and 12 personnel. And when you have a 3-headed running back monster, I don't understand why you're not experimenting with 21 personnel, 22 personnel, and just seeing what you're getting out of it. And with Stanford being a bad running team, why are you not putting 2 running backs on the field and committing to a power run scheme and getting one of your guys on the outside?
Well, and that's, when I went back and watched the game and look at the person, like the 21, I'm thinking as I'm watching it live, there's so many things that I'm tracking that personnel groupings are not, part of it at this point because, I know Brian and Vince do a lot more of that kind of stuff for the post-game show, but going back and looking and so during the game, I'm thinking there's not a whole lot of 2-back stuff going on right now. And then sure enough, you go back and watch it and there's not, but just from watching some more today, the times they did use 21, they seem to be pretty successful using that against Stanford. Did you?
Yeah, I mean, that? So if we're all humans and we err, but if I tracked it right, I would say I'm looking at it right now. I think they only came out of 2 personnel 3 times. Two running back sets. They came out 3 times. The one time they did it, let's see here. So they have 21 personnel, 4-yard run, 22 personnel, 5-yard run. Let's see, another 20 personnel, 9-yard run. Those are the three I see. So we're talking 19 yards on 3 plays. You're averaging 6 yards a play with 22 back personnel, and you only ran it 3
They
times.
only did it 3 times after it's been so successful every time they've used it before this. It's just like it seems like they're outsmarting themselves, or he is outsmarting himself with all this different stuff he's trying to do. I still don't get why so much 12 and 13 personnel against a bigger team that lacks speed like Stanford. It was really baffling to me, because that seemed to be the personnel grouping of the night for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, 11 and 12 personnel were about 50-50. They ran 13 a couple times. I told you they got into 21 and 22, like one time each. But, out of all their plays, I would say it was 50, about like 45%, 11, 45%, 12. And then the last 10% can be, a combination of all the kind of one-off plays that they ran here and there. But that's the number one thing where the theme that I'm looking at is it execution or is it Tommy? And this is a big mark in the Tommy category for not coming up with the game plan that included more 2-back personnel, in a game in which you knew you had to run, going against a very bad Stanford defensive line. And then not to mention a Stanford defensive lineman got hurt during the game, and so that already puts them down at a weakness. And so I just don't understand why we are going less and less, or against Stanford, why there was not a more concerted effort to use the best thing that your team has right now, and that's a 3-headed running back monster.
I love this from Derek. Tommy would go 05 personnel if they were all healthy, and I don't doubt it for 1 minute. I don't doubt it, and I know Vince is sick of hearing me say it at this point, because we sit next to each other in the press box. I just rail on all this 12 personnel, and when I rail the hardest is again, I sound like a broken record with this, but they bring in all these tight ends, right? So now you've got tight ends strung out across the line. You've obviously got your 5 offensive linemen. You've got at least 2 more guys, so that's 7, maybe even the third if it's 13, so that is 8. You have all these extra bodies in the box, and then what do they do more times than not? Now, there have been a few times, very few, where they've gone outside. I think I'm trying to remember, was Estime 11 or 12 the Estime touchdown? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Here we go. I got you right here.
But so many times they bring these extra tight ends, bring these extra bodies into the box, and then what do? They run a dive right at the teeth of the defense with 8 men stacked in the box, and I'm sick of seeing it.
Yeah, and that's the number one thing.
They've got the speed to win on the outside.
If you're going to go 12 personnel, which is, I know you're not a fan of it, right? But if you're going to go 12 personnel, why not run to the outside where you're trying to seal the edge? If you're going to go 12 personnel, at least run to the outside. Stop running up the middle.
Because and that's what, if they would do that, if they would do that, I wouldn't mind seeing it. But the problem is, they're not doing that. They're doing what I, am saying. They're running right at the teeth of the defense when they're bringing extra bodies in. If you're going to bring the extra bodies in, like you said, seal the outside, kick a run outside, and you've got a chance of banging one, for a big gain with a guy like Chris Tyree or Logan Diggs, or even Estime for that matter, because of the speed they got, and everybody's sitting there. Again, they're all in the box.
You know what we didn't see, and I just thought of it because someone said, "Why are but Thomas Walsh said, why are we not, why aren't the running backs being used in the pass game?" And that's another thing. How many running backs pass were there on Saturday? 0. How many screenplays were set up? 0. There were 0 running back screens. There were 0 wide receiver screens. There were 0 tight end screens. There were 0 screens overall. And what did we talk about a few weeks ago of plays that progress off of their offense? Flaring out the backs, getting the backs to wheel up the sideline, getting backs one-on-one with linebackers. There was 0 of that.
And remember, again, go back to the Cal game. If you want to talk about 21, the fact that they had 2 backs and they threw to both Estime and Tyree with the same play, and they used Estime to set up the touchdown pass to Tyree the first time. Again, it was the Cal game, and then North Carolina. Really, since then, we've seen diminishing even ideas of throwing to the running backs. And that's what, these running backs had they strung together all these, you had in the 2 games against Cal and North Carolina, you had multiple backs in each game with 100+ yards from scrimmage, with a lot of that factoring from the passing game. But then BYU, you had one back top 100 yards, and that was Estime. He only caught one pass. He nearly got to 100 on the ground. He only got one pass. And, again, you saw a lot less from Diggs and Tyree. Now, of course, you had a drop screen that could have gone somewhere. But even then, like there were more opportunities to do it, and they obviously didn't do it against Stanford either. And like the mismatches those running backs presented against Stanford and the fact that they weren't throwing to him, that's just a huge missed opportunity.
Yeah, it's really, really, really baffling because, to be quite honest with you, offensively, I think that Notre Dame's offensive line in combination with their three-headed running back monster is the strength of their team. And the reason why Mayer gets to have success is because of when you're running the ball well and you have good play action. And so, yes, Mayer is a good piece of the puzzle, but he only works with the success of your running backs. And so when you have these are three running backs that could be starters at different schools, right? And so if you have three of these guys, why are you not making concerted effort to hit more runs on the outside, to get them more involved in the passing game? Because it just sets up everything else for them on offense. And so that was the big number one, I guess this could be broken down into pregame and endgame. Pregame, big drop of the ball by Tommy, game plan, coming into what they practice during the week. I just can't believe that there was not a lot of two-back personnel with more of a concerted effort to run outside and to get the running backs involved in the pass game. And it's that you can still RPO when you have two backs in. You can RPO to one back and flip out to another back that's going into the flat, and it's so easy to do. And I'm just so confused.
That's another subject altogether, the lack of RPO in this offense, when that could be a huge part of it as well, because I said yesterday, the same guy who's calling this season was calling the Fiesta Bowl. And what was a big part of the offense there? RPO, right? We saw more of that in the Fiesta Bowl. We're not seeing it right now. And I mean, Drew Pine is a third-year quarterback. He obviously hasn't been starting, but he's been here for 3 years. I've got to believe that he can read a defender and run more RPO. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. I think kind of going the next stage or next point I'd like to go into with the offense is I want to share a screen. I'm not diagram anything, but I want to show kind of how I broke down their drives and then the result of them, and then kind of what were the bad plays attributed to Tommy or just execution. So let me see if I can pull up my screen.
I do like this comment from Brian J. Irish. He says he believes Reese underestimated Stanford. It was like Reese's play calling was for a gimmick game to show off his NFL knowledge, and it backfired on him. And I don't disagree with that. So,
all right. So this is
all these numbers.
This is what I did. So like I said, this is broken down per drive.
We blow this up so people can see it a little bit better. Okay.
I think we're good there.
Okay.
So then we have, like I said, here's the personnel column. This is like I said, this is mainly a Mayer thing. Is he split out? Is he the wing? Is he on the line of scrimmage? Are they using motion? What the play is, what the result is, and then just kind of notes over here. So first down, we get a loss of one on top of a 5-yard penalty. I chalk that up as Notre Dame didn't execute. Jared Patterson, false start. Very first run play of the game, they lose 1 yard. I know, you can say a lot of things about Tommy, but he can't go out there and block, and he can't run for you. Okay. Sure. So that's an execute there. Third down. What do? We throw it to Mayer, and it is deflected. That's an issue of Drew Pine. We've seen that before. He just needs to not do that. It's something that has happened to him before, and it continued to happen throughout the game. So I chalk that up as an execute. Okay. We're going into the second drive here. They pick up a first down, and then what does Tommy do on 1st and 10 after gaining 19 yards? He decides to pass. And so now we're sitting at 2nd and 10, and that's what we were talking about. 2nd and 10 is not something you can do in this offense, right? Okay, then we get into a 3rd and long, 3rd and 9. Who is Pine looking for again? Oh, and here's a pattern on 3rd down.
I mean, Yellow. We know who he's looking for, right?
Right. Who is he eyeballing the whole time? Mayer. Bad pass. Does it? They go out again. So that's on Pine. That's an execute play, right? Okay. So that's the first pattern I've seen here. Mayer third down. They get a blocked punt, right? Great field position. We're starting on Stanford's 32-yard line. Look at all these red plays in this sequence.
I know.
That's red means bad for anyone that's looking at this, right?
Like a bad test that you took home.
So first play, Mayer gets called for a holding, right? Questionable holding call, but Mayer can't hold. That's an execute play, right? Tommy calls a great play. They get down the sideline. They run on first down. They get almost 15 yards, or what would have been 15 yards. Mayer gets called on the hold. Okay, that's another execute play, right? Okay. Here's where it gets interesting. 1st and 10, Stanford's 13-yard line. 9 in the box. They check over to the sideline, and they still run a play. They still run a run play with 9 in the box, minus 3 yards. So now we're sitting at 1st and 13. That's a Tommy play. Okay, then we get the touchdown. Illegal formation. Tyree is covering the tight end on the outside.
Right.
Can't do that, right? That's an execute play. Next play, Pine misses Lindsey in the end zone for a touchdown. What looked to be kind of wide open. Another execute play for me. They get bailed out by, Pine running here on 3rd and 18, getting a great run. And then what do we get on 4th and 2? This is, to me, you had to get points on this block punt drive. This is a big momentum shift in the game, and Notre Dame didn't recover from it for a while. And Tommy calls up this jet sweep on 4th down, and they don't get it, right?
And it's like almost the fact that you did block a punt, you're gifted this field position. It's almost like, well, we're playing with house money, so we've got to go for the touchdown, like whether you agree with that decision or not. And, there's varying degrees of this, like whether or not you agree with going for it, as well as obviously whether or not you agree with what they called on that play.
Me personally, I'm taking the 3 points. Your team just blocked a punt. You're not looking great so far. I know everyone you want to get that touchdown, but to me, you got to throw some points up on the board. So that's,
and you're only down by 7 at that point. It's 7-0. Yeah.
So then, it'd be 7-3. Okay, so then now it's still 7-0-0. Sorry, I'm gonna try to go through this. I know this is a lot, but this is just kind of how I'm looking at it. This is drive 4. We see 4 straight run plays, right? Digs, all of them. We pick up what looks to be 14 yards on 4 straight run plays. Okay, first down midfield. Tommy draws up a pass play. It gets deflected again. That's why are we calling a pass play on 1st and 10 from the 50-yard line after we just ran 4 straight run plays for 15 yards?
Worked. Yeah, that worked.
For 15 yards. Okay. And then we get into second and long. The worst thing that this defense, this offense can do. They run, they get 3, 3rd and 7. Oh no, another 3rd down. Who are we looking at? Mayer again? Oh.
For the 3rd time on 3rd down.
And what's that say right there? He's double teamed. He not only is he looking at Mayer, but he's double teamed, right? So that's execute play, in my opinion. Pine can't throw to a guy in double coverage, no matter what the play call is. All right, drive 5. 1st and 10, Notre Dame's 40-yard line. Great field position. We run the Lindsey reverse, -8 on 1st down. Another, behind the sticks on 1st down. That's a Tommy play, okay? Drive 6. This is right before halftime. This is they just got the stop. Stanford decides to go for it. They don't get it. And now, Pine runs on 1st down, 1 yard. Can't be 1st or 2nd and 9. That's just not good. They get into a 3rd and long. This time they completes, but who's he looking at again on 3rd down? Michael Mayer. 4th straight time that he's looked at Mayer on 3rd down. Okay. They get all the way down. They get to about midfield. Pine obviously fumbles. That's an execution play. Pine can't be fumbling. So then that takes us into half. Right. First drive out of halftime. Runs for 6.
But I'm looking at the just the Mayer, like every 3rd down, literally.
Every 3rd down. That's the pattern I'm trying to highlight here. Every 3rd down is Mayer, whether he is open or not. He is only looking at Michael Mayer. So first drive.
And I just want to emphasize that, this is why college football teams have staffs of analysts, because each of the analysts is going back. One of them is looking, at least one of them is looking, like once you get into the season, okay, Joe has the North Carolina game, Bob has the BYU game, and they're all putting together data like this, looking for tendencies. And this is such an easy tendency when Drew Pine is looking at their All-American tight end on every third down. And if you look, he is double teamed almost every time in there.
Yeah. So coming out of the half now, drive 7, straight 12 personnel. They run for 8 yards, right? Okay, good job. Finally running on first down. We're picking up positive yards. Call a pass play on 3rd and 2. Mayer's bracketed and, incomplete pass. You get 8 yards on 1st and 2nd running the ball. Why not just pound it for 2 more? Instead, we call a pass, okay? Not a good thing by Tommy, okay? To double down on that, Pine throws to Mayer again on 3rd down and double coverage. So they could split the responsibility on that one. Okay.
Also just emphasize that, all these throws to Mayer are obviously they're not all on Tommy because, Drew Pine has to be able to find the open man. I remember one of those plays. I don't remember which drive it was, but like we've talked about the fact that there are open receivers. Like there was a 3rd and relatively short. Pine goes left to a double teamed Michael Mayer while sitting on the right, 2 yards past the sticks is Braden Lindsey, sitting there all alone, basically, just ready for an easy pitch and catch for a first down to move the sticks,
Yeah. So then we get into drive 8. They finally score a touchdown, right? So they start that off with a great run play on first down. Diggs takes it to about midfield. They get a great pass play in. Mayer's looking good. They get a solid another run play on first down, 2nd and short. Pine misses, this is the where he misses Merriweather on the touchdown on that, right. And this is the outside fade route. This is the NFL's favorite route this year, is that kind of slot wide receiver fading, kind of towards the end zone. So I missed that one. That's a Pine execution play. That's red. That's Pine not executing. Okay, 3rd down. Who are we looking for again? Luckily we convert, but again, another 3rd down. He throws it to Mayer, and then Estime runs in for the touchdown, okay? And a big thing I noticed on this one, why hasn't Tommy been going to tempo before this? This is their first drive using tempo, and look what happens. They score a touchdown. Boom. They're getting on the ball. They're putting pressure on Stanford. They're not letting them sub. Their guys are getting winded.
Well, so let me ask you about that real quick, because, this is another hot topic right now, just in terms of, this scan offense, where they go to the line of scrimmage and they stand forever. What do you think about all of it?
I know there's a lot of mixed reviews on it. I don't personally think it's the downfall. Is it great? No, but is it
Tell me, better? As a defensive player though, like as a defensive player, when you see the other team taking all that time and they're checking and doing all that stuff, what's going on your end?
Well, obviously, you're getting a breather, right? You get to catch your breath for kind of a second, and then 2, the offense is largely looking over to, okay, this is what the defense is showing us. This is the play that we want to run. Most often of the time, it's like 50-50. You're going to change your formation a little bit, maybe. So that means the defense kind of has to shift, maybe some strength calls or shift their alignment a little bit. But, most of the time they're staying in the same formation. They're just looking over to basically confirm if that's the play they want to run, or if they'd like to switch into something else. So on that aspect, I'm fine, because I'm all about getting into the right play and picking the play that's going to, give them the best shot at success. And ideally, you have a quarterback that can do it on his own, but Pine is so inexperienced, they don't really trust him. And that's why they're using this scan and going over to the sideline. So, it's no different than when NFL teams come up to the line of scrimmage and you hear a lot of kill, da-da-da-da. Right. It's just that Pine he's not making the decision himself. He's looking
over. And it
over,
also takes longer. And, like the thing that you're talking about, one, you're giving the defense the chance to catch their breath. That are literally not back on their heels. But 2, if you're running the tempo like you were talking about on that possession, and the defense is a little bit winded, and then you've got to hurry yourself to get, as a defensive player, to get set up, you're not as sure about what's going on. Like if the offense is in that tempo, you're not only not giving the defense a chance to catch their breath, you're giving them less time to survey what the formation is and try to figure out themselves. You're cutting down their own think time, so it makes it harder for them to react as well. Which again, like it makes it head scratching that they are so willing to concede that much most of the time when they're doing this. Notre Dame is.
Yeah, I definitely think there's pros and cons to it, but I just think with Pine's relatively inexperience and them wanting to get into the right play, I see both sides of it. Maybe doing it a little bit less often, kind of having that way you can establish some more of that tempo and not and get kind of rolling. That might be a more of trusting yourself more. As a play caller, you just got to trust with what you're calling and just roll with it.
Like, look at last year. When did the offense finally get some consistency last year? It was the end of Virginia Tech when Cone came back in. They had to run some tempo, and they sat back and went, wow, that kind of worked. And then what happened for most of the rest of the season? Heck of a lot more tempo. And the offense under Jack Cone looked a heck of a lot better the rest of the way, a lot more consistent the rest of the way.
Definitely agree. That was a big thing that got them going last year was the up tempo, keeping the pressure on the defense. And I think that's just another thing that they need to get into this year. And obviously scan will slow you down, but there's times where scan works. So you just kind of have to, it's just like anything. You got to be able to do it in the right situation, I think is the best answer I can give on that.
Okay.
And then I guess these will be our last two drives here. Drive 9, 13-7. Defense just stopped Stanford on the 4th down. Big 4th down stop out coming off of their first touchdown. Some good stuff here. Start off in 20 personnel on 1st down, gain of 9, right? Okay. Run. We picked up again another 18 yards on 3 straight run plays. We mix in a pass here, and then Pine fumbles that snap. Again, bad execution play. Luckily, next play, he throws the Merriweather touchdown, and now they are up 14-13. And this is the drive where that fumble somehow gets reversed. I still don't understand that. Stanford gets a field goal. There's 10 minutes left on the clock. This is Notre Dame's last possession that I charted. And again, another good kind of sequence here. They run the ball 4 straight times. They pick up over 20 yards on the ground, and then they go to this, Pine. Pine doesn't throw or makes a bad throw. That's the 3rd and short play where he's trying to get it to Lorenzo Styles on 3rd and 2, and he RPO action. He motions out and then goes into the flat, and he just drops it. It hits off his hands, but Pine throws it high. On 4th down, they run, get 6 yards, convert. 1st down. This is obviously it's a bad play, but it's a cornerback blitz. You can't really control that. That's a good play by the defense. There's a flag here, so we're in first and long. Estime gets a great run to about Stanford's 33, and then he fumbles. You can't, if you're Tommy Rees, you can't control Estime fumbling. That's a big execution there. I think if he doesn't fumble that ball, a big moments happen in this game with about 10 minutes left. Yeah. The fumble getting reversed that gave Notre Dame the ball back, and Estime fumbling himself once he got the ball back. So I just think that at the end of the day, Tommy Rees, yes, he put them in bad situations with their game plan, but when it came down to the actual game, there was a lot of bad execution. I understand where Marcus Freeman is coming from when he says execution in game. Is there still stuff that Tommy did wrong in the game? Yeah, but I chalked it up as in game, snap. Once the game started, beginning to end, I saw more execution errors than I saw Tommy Rees errors.
So, a couple of things on that. One, isn't poor execution a symptom of the coaching that you're getting and, the way you're practicing it on a day in, day out basis? Now, some of it's going, there are going to be limitations, like physical limitations with who the quarterback is, and some of it's on them. I get that, but at least part of the poor execution, especially if it is this much, has to be on them. And two, again, the situation that like the plays that you're calling against the defense that you're going up against, the defense that you're seeing, that also contributes to whatever the execution is. Like Drew Pine staring down Michael Mayer all the time, and like again, like sitting back and looking at almost every third down, that's exactly where the ball is going. Now, obviously, that is more on Drew Pine, but again, like I just the way I look at it, the way these personnel packages are being put on the field against that Stanford defense, that has to contribute to the execution as well.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say here is Tommy Rees is everyone's scapegoat right now, and he deserves a lot of yes, he deserves a lot of this heat, but they still didn't execute on there's still a lot of execution errors too. And I think that needs to be the ground that people need to give up, give some ground on. Is I know these kids are, they're in college and they're just players and stuff, but Tommy didn't have a good game plan. We've already highlighted that. They got into the game, they got into bad personnel, choices. That's Tommy's fault, but there was still a lot of execution plays that happened. Pine fumbling twice, Mayer holding, an illegal formation that gets a touchdown call back, Estime fumbling. You got to be able to give, in my opinion. It can't all be on Rees. I think what I'm trying to say here is it's a bad cocktail of execution and Tommy Rees. It's not one or the other. It's a bad cocktail of both of them.
Tim says 5'9" quarterbacks have a tough time. Now, in Drew Pine's defense, he's a bit taller than 5'9". Let's not get carried away. Let's remember that he's standing beside 6'5" offensive linemen out there. So, that makes him look even shorter. He's not Tiny Tim out there, or Bob Costas for that matter, who we'll talk about here in a little bit. He actually is closer to, I can verify because I've stood next to him. He is closer to 6 foot tall than he is to 5'9". So let's not get too carried away. But I get the point. He is a shorter quarterback, but other short quarterbacks have succeeded as well. So great stuff. Is there anything else that you would like to add before we move along tonight?
Are we moving along to, everyone's favorite segment, or I'd like to get into a little bit of defense as well. Not nearly as long. Like I'm talking like five quick minutes.
Let's touch some defense then, because I know you prepared some stuff. Yeah. The defense is at least playing better than the offense. There's still a lot of room for improvement, but the one thing you can say about the defense, because as an old player friend of mine has always told me, stats are for losers, but I'll rattle off some of the defensive numbers.
But before you get in, stats tell the truth, right? Stats
I believe that too. I believe that too.
There's no, when you look at the stats, they're black and white. There's no lying, right?
But what I was going to say is, stats may be for losers, but when we look at the point totals at the end of the game, Notre Dame has held, even though their record is only 3-3, they've still held all these other teams well below their scoring averages this year. They've held everyone. Look at what Ohio State has done since that season opener.
I got that in my little spiel here. Don't you worry.
Okay. So total defense, they rank 39th right now. Pass efficiency defense, 89th. They're 58th in rushing defense, 129th in red zone defense, which is very alarming considering there are 131 teams in the nation. 36th in scoring, and this one really alarming. They are dead last, 131st in turnovers gained. The Notre Dame defense is this season. So what would you like to say about Al Golden's Fighting Irish defense, Jess?
So there's a couple things. Overall, I want to say that, Al Golden is running a scheme here that is at an NFL level, right? And that is probably the number one thing that you want to look at is he doing too much? Is he asking too much of his players? Is he putting, his players too much in a bind? And before the game against Stanford, we were on the phone and I told you, I said, I really don't think, I've been maybe a little bit too hard on the linebackers because they're not playing, obviously ideal or great, but at the same time, you got to look at what is Golden asking them to do? What situations is he putting them in? Are they still fulfilling kind of, what they're being asked to do? And some offenses are designed around, okay, we're willing to concede 2 or 3 yard rushing plays, right? That's fine as long as we get them to third down, we put them in a passing situation and they don't get the first down. That can be, a philosophy of a defense. So right away, that's the kind of the thing that I was looking at is, is he asking them to do too much? And I think it's kind of 50-50. I think that they can handle it, but at times he is asking, a lot when it comes to scheme. But I think that another thing that you have to take into account is, the youngness, right? The secondary is very young. You would hope, a lot of linebackers kind of, they have experience at linebackers, but then you have Maris Leofau, who's naturally athletic, getting a lot of his experience in right now. Defensive line, that's where they have more experience. So these guys can handle these kind of schemes. So that's what I looked at first. I don't think, like they're being so much overwhelmed by scheme. And then what I looked at, the main, you brought up a lot of good stats, but the main stat I looked at is how many points you're giving up. That's what it comes down to, in my opinion. How many points is your defense giving up? They're giving up 22 points per game. That's 27th best in the country. All 131 teams, they're the 27th best. They give up 22 points per game. Okay, well, then what's the national average? What are other teams giving up per game? What are offenses scoring per game? National average is 28. So they're 6 point. They're basically a touchdown under the national average. That's pretty good, right? Considering you're playing the number one schedule. You got to factor that into it. Playing North Carolina, playing BYU, some good offenses, right? Ohio State, good offense. Ohio State's offense, they average 49 a game. What did they give up to Ohio State again? Like 20 points, I think.
Something like that. Yeah.
20. So that's 29 points under the average. I wanted to find North Carolina's average. I ran out of time, but I'm assuming that number has got to be up in the 30s or 40s.
They held them a couple touchdowns below their average as well.
Right. They held them under their average. Okay. So then what's Notre Dame scoring per game? What is Notre Dame's offense average per game? 24 points. So Notre Dame's offense averaged 24 points a game. Their defense gives up 22 points a game. Those are all, 20. Notre Dame's offense comes in four under average. That's 89th best in the country when it comes to scoring, the 89th best scoring offense, right? Okay. So then Stanford, now kind of looking against Stanford specific. Stanford scored 1 touchdown the entire game. Opening possession, their opening possession. A lot of teams score on the opening possession, and a lot of defenses make adjustments after that. So, okay, Stanford's only touchdown, opening drive. They score their next field goal because Pine fumbles right before the half. Gives them great field possession. Defense can't do much about that when Stanford takes over on Stanford's 40-yard line. So now we're up to 10 points, right?
Well, I'll say this. Watching the game, like it sure felt like Notre Dame was giving up more than the 16 points that they gave up. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and that's an attribute.
I think it's because of so many third down. Stanford would just kill them on third down and extend drives longer. Ultimately, the defense, they'd finally get off the field most of the time, but it felt worse than a 16-point. Maybe it's because the offense wasn't scoring either.
Yeah, and that's the main overall point that I'm getting to is, this defense gives up 22 points a game. They give up 16 to Stanford. I'm sorry, but if you hold an opposing team to 16 points and it's Stanford and their run defense is as bad as it's been, you can't blame the defense in any regards for this loss. Right. You got to score more than 16 points against a bad Stanford team. And so, what are the downsides to this defense? They don't create a lot of turnovers. They're not getting a lot of pressure for having a good defensive line. They're horrible on third down and even worse in third and long, right? It seems every third and long they give up a first down, and it's like
that screen pass. What was it? 3rd and 12.
3rd and 12. I was just about to bring that play up. 3rd and 12 on a screen and just run straight down the field for 13 yards. And then their red zone, not great, but look at. I think that number gets inflated because teams don't get to the red zone very often on them. They give up, basically majority field goals. And so when teams do get in the red zone, yeah, they are scoring, but that's because they're not down there very often. So, I guess overall what I'm saying is I'm okay with the way the defense is playing. I think they're playing above average. They've held, Ohio State, North Carolina, and BYU to, limited attacks, gave their offense a chance to win, and the offense isn't executing. They're not scoring enough points to win these games. But, would you like the defense to create more turnovers and probably be better on 3rd and long? Of course you would. But this to me is an offensive problem. This isn't, the defense is doing enough for them to win games. When you have the 90th scoring offense, I think that's the biggest or the bigger issue right now.
Yeah, I agree. And, like Jonathan's saying, the thing about it is it's that crucial drive at the end, need a stop, can't make a stop. It's like there've been the back-breaking type, like you look at Marshall and like they've got a chance to get off the field and probably get great field position. They can't make a stop. Ohio State, the long drive before that. BYU, they've got the 3rd and long that they convert and they turn it into a touchdown and make a game out of it when it shouldn't have been a game. It's like that big pivotal kind of stop they just haven't been able to make, it seems like.
Yeah, and that's going to be the main thing that everyone remembers, right? They go up 14-13, and then what happens? They give up the field goal and go down 16-13.
Yeah, I mean, it's
okay, but on that drive, they got that fumble. That field goal never should have happened. I know you can't say what if, but they created a turnover. They got the ball back, and somehow there was indisputable evidence to overturn that. I mean, come on. That was such a backbreaker, like the defense got the turnover. They got the stop on the crucial situation after, Notre Dame takes the lead.
They didn't.
And only they didn't. It's like, what are the odds, like what? And so like that, it's just so hard because there's a lot of give and take, in my opinion. And obviously you can't blame stuff on circumstantial situations, but that's a fumble. They did their job. They took the ball back.
Like you talk about complementary football, if the offense was doing a better job, a higher percentage of the time, that indirectly helps out the defense as well. One, you're not putting as much pressure on them, like every play doesn't become as important. And you're also giving the defense more time, to kind of rest, get their stuff together on the sideline when your offense is on the field more consistently.
Yeah, and against, you talked about it. What did Stanford do? They did what Notre Dame should have done. They ran the crap out of the ball, and they had very long drives, and it seemed like every drive was third down, first down, third down, first down. Just long drives kept Notre Dame's defense on the field. That's tiring. Having to play an RPO scheme is very tiring. So, like I said, overall, very, very satisfied with Notre Dame's defense. Can they do more, like create more turnovers? Yes. Can they create more pressure? Yes. Do they need to step up kind of in these bigger situations and get those key stops? Yes. They need to be able to help their offense out more. But glaring issue, offense has to score more points. And that's more of the story, in my opinion. But, there's still half a season left. I know they're 3-3. We know there was going to be growing pains. No one likes to lose. No one likes to lose twice at home to very bad teams. But, this is going to be the worst of it, in my opinion. I think that, this season is going to be the worst of it. I think Marcus Freeman is a very good coach. I think he's very I like the responsibility and the accountability he takes. It's very refreshing that his first instinct is to blame himself and not the players. And that's going to go a long way, and they're getting in obviously good recruits. It's just everyone in the moment is going to be upset, but I just really see a very bright future kind of going forward from this. It's just the growing pains. Like, it's going to be painful.
Speaking of which, Jess, are you ready for rapid fire?
I am. I've done a lot of talking today, so I think it's time to talk some more.
You'll get a chance more to talk some more, because the question is just what you were talking about. You set this one up. Do you buy or sell writing this season off as first-year growing pains for Marcus Freeman? And in other words, writing off the ups and downs and the trials and tribulations they have already had as Marcus Freeman growing pains.
I'm gonna buy that. It's a first-time head coach, right? He never coached before. He's taking over a program where you're expected to win. You could consider it's a top 5 program all time. It's a very, very high level, very ranking job, right? There's a lot of expectations that come with it. You're learning on the fly. You've never been a head coach before. You're playing the number one schedule in the country. I don't understand people who don't want to give Marcus Freeman some of these growing pains, because there's nothing that we've ever done in life as people where we've attempted it for the first time and been 100% successful at it. We all make mistakes.
I agree with that last part, but like, do you think that Jack Swarbrick factored this in when he made the hire that, well, there could be some ups and downs, like, what are the lows going to look like? What did Jack Swarbrick envision the worst of this season could be when you talk about growing pains for a first-year head coach like you're talking about? Because there were always going to be some level of growing pains. The recruiting success that Marcus Freeman had and, the video of the team celebrating all that stuff, it glossed over a lot of different things. There were going to be growing pains. We just didn't know exactly what it was going to look like. As great a defensive coordinator as he is and as great a recruiter as he is still a first-time head coach. So I will give you that to an extent. There were going to be some things come up that he had never dealt with just because he was a first-year head coach. That's the nature of being a first-time anything, kind of like you were alluding to, like it's one thing to work at Walmart and even like be the manager of a Walmart, but it's another thing to own Walmart, right? Like there's a huge difference in there. So from that aspect, growing pains were to be expected. The question was just what form would they take? How big would they be? Like we haven't seen, like I thought maybe they would manifest themselves in like more game management type issues. He's gone. We haven't seen a whole lot of those. He's gone for it on fourth down quite a bit, 6 times. They've only succeeded twice on fourth down. Like his sideline demeanor, that's a big thing now too. And to me, that's something that gets more attention than it deserves. Like when things aren't going bad, purple face wasn't it was a bigger issue when Notre Dame was 8-4 than when they were 12-0, for example, and like they keep cutting over to Marcus Freeman and, he doesn't, he's not all like everyone reacted to the extreme when the former coach was going nuts. And now you've got a coach, who is calm in his demeanor on the sideline and relatively expressionless, and everyone's flipping out about it. Like Tom Landry is a Hall of Fame head coach, and he was known as the stoic coach on the sideline. He was, very, icy, cool, and emotionless on the sideline. It worked for him. So like that, not a big issue to me. The biggest issue I have, I think probably, with the growing pains argument is people that keep wanting to say things like, well, Dabo Swinney lost 12 games in his first 2 seasons. You just got to give him time. Well, the problem with that argument is Swinney took over a program that was averaging 5+ losses a year for like 15 years. Marcus Freeman took over a program that only lost 7 games over the previous 4 years combined. So acceptable growing pains to me this year would have been, okay, you're still going to lose to Ohio State. You're still going to lose to Clemson, maybe even lose to USC. It would suck because it's your rival, but maybe even still lose to them. Like those would be your 3 losses. And to lose to Marshall and to a bad Stanford team when you take over a program that's gone 43-7 over the last 4 years, because the talent in the program right now is every bit as comparable to the talent that those teams had coming into this year. So that's why, to me, it's a tougher pill to swallow what we're seeing. The kind of things that we're seeing, that's the troubling thing to me, I guess.
Yeah,
first time head coach or not.
It just seems I am a little bit more sympathetic than some people. There's still a lot of transition offensively, new quarterback, not knowing who your lead running back is going to be. Obviously, questions at wide receiver doesn't help. And so, then you lose your quarterback halfway through your first couple games. There's just a lot going on. Like I said, first-time head coach, but you can't lose to Marshall, right? You can't lose to Stanford after they haven't won against 11 straight FBS teams. I get those things. I'm not excusing those losses. But at the same time, what kind of conversation are we going to have if Notre Dame ends the season by beating Syracuse, Clemson, and USC? What are we going to be talking about then? Yeah. I get, it's good to talk about these things now, there's still a lot of season left, and I'd still like to give him benefit of the doubt of an entire resume of work. Like I said, I guarantee half the people in here are going to have a way different tone if Notre Dame beats Syracuse, Clemson, and USC, and Tommy Rees calls a great game, and Marcus Freeman wins those games. I just right now, yes. Has there been growing pains? Yes. Has there been underperformance? Yes. But there's still a lot that he can prove with the rest of the season, and I think that a lot of it can be made up for by beating those three teams I just talked about.
You're right. And I mean, a week ago, we were in a position where we believed maybe that was actually like it was trending in that direction. And then you lose to a team that you should have blown off the field. That's why, like, you're right. Realistically, can those things happen? Sure. But they seem less likely at this point. Like, you're a math person. So like, you do a lot of calculations and figuring odds and stuff like that. Like, Salty Virginia Peanuts had this in here, scrap a lot of things. He said we should focus on underclassmen development, get them experience for next year, and keep our recruiting classes, make the offense fun again. I think there's a balance to it, because you don't just want to scrap everything, because you have a lot of upperclassmen who are still in this program, and you don't want to just cash your chips right now, because if you start doing that, you're 3-3. If you just en masse start putting a lot of young guys in, Tyler Eifert was trying to convince Michael Mayer apparently to just forego his whole season and get ready for the draft, not even play this season. Like, what kind of message are you sending to a guy like Michael Mayer, who's obviously the best player you have on the field right now?
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, I heard someone brought up the other day, Foskey still has another year of eligibility. What does that look like for him? He's had a down year, and does he want to, potentially even kind of come back? So I don't know. I guess people are saying I live in a fairy tale land. That's the crazy part about this team is they have the talent to lose to Stanford one week, but I have the confidence that they could very well beat USC the next week. Like this team can do that, and that's the frustrating part.
Yeah, it's absolutely, and that's, and I don't know if that is good or bad. Like, when you're judging these coaches and this coaching staff, the fact that you could lose to Marshall and lose to a horrible Stanford team, and then possibly turn around and win those kind of games, and like the home and away thing, like you lost to Stanford and Marshall at home. What is going to happen when Clemson comes to town? Man. Okay, fill in the blank. Going for it on 4th and 2 rather than kicking the field goal Saturday night was blank.
It was unexcusable / not the right call. You block a punt, right? You block a punt. Your offense is playing bad. Stanford obviously has all the momentum right now. The last thing you want to do is get stopped and put 0 points on the board. I respect the guts. I respect that you have that confidence in your team, but sometimes you just got to put it to the side and make the logical decision, because I know hindsight is 50-50, but if they kick that field goal, guess what the final score is? 17-16, right?
Well, that's assuming, everything.
Right. I know that's
Stanford may have opted
hindsight
to
that
drive
everything goes,
rather than
the same, after that. But still, I'm just get the points on the board.
I agree.
Especially after a big, you have to capital. It'd be one thing if it's a drive, right? Your offense drove all the way down the field, but your special teams made an amazing play. You got to make them feel rewarded and put some points on the board.
You got to come away with that with points. I agree. And like, it's early still. It's the end of the first quarter. You're down 7-0. You're at the Stanford 5. So I'm sure that, some analytics say that that's when you should go for it. But they, going back to this whole execution thing, they hadn't executed. You had a touchdown called back because of the illegal formation. Drew Pine just sailed a ball that should have been a touchdown over Braden Lindsey's head.
Right.
In the end zone. You didn't execute there.
You get bailed out on a 3rd and long run by Pine.
Exactly. It's 3rd and 18. He has to scramble to gain 16 yards just to get him down to the 5-yard line. You were fortunate just to be there. And obviously that scramble and Pine picking up what he did, swayed the decision quite a bit. If he even only picks up like 6 yards, it's an automatic. You're just kicking a field goal there. But it's like you got very lucky that Pine was able to hit that run just to get there. And then what do? 13 personnel, 3 tight ends. You got a running back, and Thomas is split out to the right. So you've got 10 Stanford players in the box, and then you motion Thomas across the back to give him that jet sweep. So you bring all 11 into the box with that. Now, obviously, his momentum is carrying him one direction, but then Michael Mayer whiffs on his block. Eli Raridan is trying to block 4 players over there. And, Raridan actually drives his guy backwards. He's the only, he's one of the few guys who did his job correctly on that play. But it's just the decision. I think you take your points. The play call was just the worst. Like if you're going to go for it, there's so many other things that you should have done. But again, you've got 13 personnel, so you're not even spreading anybody out on that play. And then you run it right into the strength of their defense, which is, to me, what they did most of the night. So,
yeah, I mean, kind of what you were talking about. They had, their first 2 drives before this block punt drive. They ran 8 plays, had a total of 27 yards, went 3 and out, and then 5 and out. You just got to get points at that point. Give your offense some confidence. Get everyone some confidence.
Absolutely, and they didn't. Okay, so Notre Dame opened as a 24-point favorite against UNLV. Scale of 1 to 10. How confident are you in wagering on the Irish the rest of the season?
It's not. I'm not disconfident in wagering on Notre Dame, so I'll put this at like a 7. I'm not going to pick them to cover spreads. I'll never spread bet Notre Dame. I'll be okay with like taking alternate spreads. I can confidently maybe take some alternate spreads. In terms of them being a 24-point favorite against UNLV, I'd put my confidence at a 0, on that one, considering Notre Dame scores 24 points per game. That let alone you got to score 20. You're not going to beat them 24-0. So, to me, I'm not very confident about that. And if I were everyone else, I would lay the house on UNLV covering that spread, because Notre Dame has to score 24 points and then score 24 more than the other team on top of that.
Yes, they are 3-3 against the spread this season. And you know what the 3 losses are? Double-digit favorites against Cal, Stanford, and Marshall.
Right.
3 home games, double-digit favorites in all 3, and those are the 3 losses against the spread this season. Didn't cover in any of them. The only time their game has gone over the point total as well, like the over-under for the point total, was North Carolina. So I am 0. I would feel 0 confidence wagering anything on Notre Dame this season, just because they have been all over the map with everything they do. I did feel confident that they would go over on that North Carolina, but just what you were talking about, Jess, if this team is really capable of losing to Marshall and to Stanford at home, and then like you were talking about, they could still theoretically beat Clemson and USC. If that's what they're capable of, how could you feel confident in wagering on them in anything if that's really what they're capable of?
It's just bipolarness almost is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Fill in the blank. It's blank that the Tennessee Athletic Department is trying to get donations to raise $150,000 to play for new goalposts after fans tore them down Saturday after the Vols knocked off Alabama.
It's absolutely ridiculous. You got all these kids paying X amount of dollars. You're a public school. You're getting all this money. Football brings in a lot of money. Obviously, you're an SEC school. It's just ridiculous. You can afford a goalpost, right? Like you haven't beat Alabama in how many years? You're telling me you don't want your fans and student body to celebrate and tear down the goalpost and have controlled fun. Like, should they have done it? No, but it's controlled fun. You haven't beat Bama in like 15 years. You were horrible. Everyone ripped you for hiring. I can't say his name right. I think it's Huppinell. I don't know how to say it.
Josh Heupel.
And they brought over the AD from UCF. Everyone just ripped him, right? 2 years later, what's the guy do? He beats Alabama. You haven't beat Alabama in 15. Who cares? You make
15
so
straight
much.
they had lost.
You make so much money. You make that game alone. Alcohol sales, ticket sales, sold out. Like, come on, that's a penny. That's a drop in the bucket for them.
That's why so many of these schools, lube up the goalposts so that fans can't take them because they don't want to have to spend the money. I remember, I think it was my first year. I can't remember who they beat. We were at Kansas. I can't remember if it was Kansas State or who it was. It might have been Cal came to town, and Cal had they had a Heisman Trophy favorite running back. It was way before Marshawn Lynch. I can't think of his name though, but the students tore down the goalposts, and there's a little lake outside the stadium. And then the next morning, the goalposts are in the lake over there.
They took it to the lake.
And like at Tennessee, they threw it in the river. There's a river that runs right outside the stadium there. And they threw the goalposts in the river, which I couldn't believe. But it's like, come on, this is Alabama you just beat. This is the team that has been kicking everybody's butt, especially your butt, in the SEC forever. And it's been a million years, not a million, but it's been a couple decades since Tennessee has been legit, obviously since Phil Fulmer used to be the head coach there. It's been a while. And so now you're going to be too cheap to even pay for the goalpost being torn down. Unbelievable.
I would, if I would take a goalpost being torn down once in every 15 years, if that's the rate at which you want to beat Alabama.
Man, it doesn't matter. Like, Jonathan is just coming at us for everything today. First and only win for Kansas that year. This was early 90s. They had a couple successful years under Glenn Mason in the early 90s. Dana Stubblefield was there. Defensive lineman named Chris Mamalanga, I think, who played in the NFL for a little bit. Keith Lonecker on the offense. They had some decent guys on the lines on those. There you go. Thank you, my man. Javid Best. I believe that was it. I believe it was Javid Best. You're right about that. I think that's it, David. Good call. Good call. All right. During Saturday's UNLV Air Force game, a referee went into the stands to tell the UNLV band to stop playing when Air Force has the ball, which I think is kind of hilarious. But Pat Forty said the ref was literally grandstanding and could have either just gotten word to him by using, one of those sideline microphones, or just telling the UNLV sideline, hey, tell them to stop playing when you've got the ball. What do you think about all this?
I thought it was hilarious. I watched the video. Actually, the ref is the band isn't like, first row. He's walking up, through the section. He finds the band or the director or whatever you want to, and he's talking to him. And sure, it's a great point, but I'm sure that the refs have tried multiple times before that to tell him, like, hey, you got to stop. And they weren't getting the point. So I don't think the ref goes into the stands for no reason. We've never seen a ref do it. So obviously UNLV wasn't listening to probably, prior, hey, you need to stop, or, prior kind of threats you might want to call him. And so the ref said, hey, if I go up to him and tell him to his face, he's probably going to tell him, we've tried telling you to stop. And if you don't stop, we're going to kick your whole band out. I think that was probably more of the giving a verbal threat of, hey, you're not supposed to do this. Please don't do it. And if you continue to do it, I'm going to have no choice but to kick the band out. So I thought it was admirable. I enjoyed it. And I also thought it was funny at the same time.
I do think it's funny. You don't see a referee going into the stands very often to do something like this. This might be something we have to keep an eye on this week with UNLV coming to town as well. Like the Stanford band has been banned for life from Notre Dame Stadium. They are never allowed to come back. So we didn't have an opposing band last week. What's going to happen this week when UNLV's band comes to town? Are the ushers, are the infamous Notre Dame ushers going to have to lay the smackdown with the UNLV Running Rebel band when they come into Notre Dame Stadium this weekend? I thought it was kind of funny too, watching the official, climb up the steps. I didn't think he was grandstanding. I agree. I've got a feeling it was a recurring thing, and ultimately you just got to put your foot down and you got to tell them you can't be playing when the other team has the ball.
Yeah, Henry's putting his foot down right now. He's not happy about something. If anyone could see, he's in that little window back there. He just took off, but
might have to get the official to come tell Henry to pipe down.
He doesn't listen to me, so I might need to.
That's right. Okay, so Bob Costas has been doing the TV play-by-play for the Yankees Guardians playoff series, which is concluding sometime soon. It started around 4:00. The final game started earlier this afternoon because they got rained out yesterday. But the reviews for Mr. Costas have been mixed at best. Here's a sample Twitter critique of Bob Costas. They said, Costas is great at the start, but inning 6, down 3 runs. This bleep is annoying. Nobody wants to hear about 1902. Write a bleeping book. What have you thought about Bob Costas on the call for this series, Jess? Because I know you've been watching.
I tweeted something out the other day. I can't remember what. I think it was before game 4, game 3. Hey, why can't we just leave Bob Costas alone? I think he's doing a great job.
Jesse had to mute himself because Henry is just taking over the show on his head. He's trying to get Henry to settle down right now. Are you ready at that end? Is Henry piped down a little bit?
Yeah, there's just something running around outside. Okay. I don't know what's bothering him. But more of the story is it seems to me we as a society, and especially when it comes, as sports fans and broadcasters and play-by-play, we're always trying to find something wrong. We're always, Joe Buck is this, Troy Aikman is that, Kirk Herbstreit is this, Bob Costas is that. Just enjoy them. Bob Costas has a good voice. He provides a lot of experience, a lot of, he's been to a lot of major sporting events. I just think he does a good job. Does he get caught up in maybe some of the stuff that people are complaining about here and there a little bit? Yeah, that's fine. But, to me, he's so insightful. Like I enjoy it. I know he's, the situation is never too big for him. And so, yeah, I just, it's just, why can't we just sit back and say, oh, thanks, Bob Costas. You're doing a good job of calling this game. Like, why do we got to point out, every broadcaster's flaws or why we don't like them or all those things? It just gets annoying after a while. Just enjoy the game. Enjoy it.
Like, it's amazing. Bob Costas, this is the first full playoff series he has called in 22 years. 2000 was the last time he called a full postseason series, which is amazing because, like, I grew up, Bob Costas, NBC, you had the NBC Game of the Week. He was the voice of baseball, basically, on TV. You had Bob Costas, Joe Garagiola, and that crew. It was, so, like, that's what, you kind of grew up with when you were watching. Now, the Game of the Week stuff obviously doesn't mean as much anymore. He comes from another time. He likes to let you know that he comes from another time quite often. Here's the biggest problem I have with Bob Costas. I'm going to play this clip. This is actually a home run from the first inning. This is Giancarlo Stanton's first inning home run because I turned this game on. I knew we had this question tonight. Here's Bob Costas with the call of this home run, and I'll let you hear it, and then I'll tell you the problem that I have with it afterwards, okay?
A drive to right center field. Back near the wall, and gone! So much power in that direction for Giancarlo Stanton. He had 31 during the season. This is his second of this series. And the Yankees jump on Savali in the first and take a 3-0 lead.
Okay, so the problem that I have with that, I mean, technically, the first part of it is a good call. Giancarlo Stanton, right center field and gone. At that point, as soon as you say gone, you need to shut up. But what did Bob Costas do? He kept talking through the whole thing on TV. As soon as the call is made, Vin Scully was a master of this. As soon as the home run is out of the park and you say, and gone or whatever you're going to say, you need to stop talking for a while. Let the crowd tell the story. Let, hear the fans going wild. See the fans. He doesn't need to keep talking at that point. Lay out for a good 10 or 15 seconds and then go into all that stuff that he went into afterwards. That's the thing with Bob is it's just that he hasn't let the broadcast breathe quite a bit. I love his voice. I love his enthusiasm. I love his passion for the game, all these different things, but he has kind of gone on a little bit too much at times. And I think that's what, like you barely even know Ron Darling is there half the time. And I think that's what's got a lot of people, kind of piped up.
Honest question here. I know you would know this more. And I just genuinely, I can't remember. Does Bob Costas? When's the last time he did a baseball game? Does he do playoff?
Game?
Does he do playoff baseball games every year, or is it just when TB? Like I just can't remember the last time I saw Bob Costas do a baseball game.
See, he doesn't. He works for MLB Network, so he'll do some MLB Network games and stuff like that, kind of here and there. But he doesn't call games on the regular like he used to. And like I said, it's been 22 years since he called a full playoff series, so he doesn't do it nearly as regularly as he used to. Maybe that's part of the issue. Like he and Darling obviously don't work together very much. They're doing it for what, TBS, TNT, or whoever. So no, he doesn't call a whole lot of games.
I just want to say that Mr. Brian NY, no one wants the Yankees to win. No one's cheering. You're celebrating like we all were like on our edge wanting the Yankees to win.
Right.
They couldn't even let the Guardians stay in one hotel last night. They played an MLS soccer game last night, but the Yankees didn't want to play. So, I'm not over here making excuses, but no one wanted the Yankees to win. And it seemed like the Yankees set themselves up real nice by not playing last night.
Right.
Gave the bullpen an extra rest day, gave themselves an extra rest day for the Astros. It just a lot of things lined up for the Yankees on the back half here. But, that's just me.
Brian's going, yeah. All right, let's go. Last question for tonight. Fill in the blank. It's blank that ESPN has elevated Scott Van Pelt's Bad Beats segment into a monthly 30-minute show that's going to air Sundays, or that is airing Sundays at 5:30.
I think it's pretty fun, overall. I would never personally want to be, featured on My Bet being on the Bad Bet segments, because usually it's like what was the game the other night? I think it was it Air Force? Did Air Force play UNLV? Was that who they played last week?
Yep.
Air Force got a touchdown with like 10 seconds left for a backdoor cover, and that's a bad beat. And I enjoy watching them, and I think they're, it's funny to watch, and like it's enjoyable, and I just wouldn't want it to be me. So if it involves any of my bets, you're not going to catch me watch it, because I'm going to be pretty upset. Like last year, I had a nasty parlay, and Josh Allen fumbled on like 4th and goal on that Monday night or Sunday night game, and I lost a lot of money because I picked the Bills to cover or to win on money line, and Josh Allen, screwed me. So, I like the segment. I think it's a good time. And it's just good to see, those crazy circumstances where like a guy hits a 3 at the buzzer, before halftime and a team covers, and that ruins a bet. Like, it's just interesting seeing those different things. And it just shows that literally like every play has something riding on it now. And that's what sports betting is kind of amplified, in my opinion.
Right. I like the segment on the show, like Jonathan was saying, just on Sports Center, because it's like you can kind of see, kind of hit a few here and there. It's cool that they're turning it into a longer form show. Sunday nights, though, like especially during the football season, shouldn't it be like on Tuesday nights or even Monday night, or like not in the middle of football on Sundays? So that's my only real issue with it. And I mean, like, I was just praying for a backdoor cover when Kansas was playing Oklahoma the other day, but it didn't quite happen. They didn't quite get there. But yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's a great segment. I think it's a lot of fun. But you're right. It's like you don't want one of your games to show up on that, because then you're just beating your head against the wall.
I can't believe, was Drunk Vigo here the whole time, and this was the first time we've heard. I feel like if he just dropped
here, I don't.
Yeah,
seen.
He dropped a comment, and it's like I've been waiting for his Tommy slander the entire show, and he just pops up with like 1 minute left.
It's time for Tommy to be made like Joe Pesci in Goodfellas. All right, well, thanks for that, Vigo. That's going to do it for tonight, though. Thanks to everyone. As David said, hit that like button on your way out if you would. It helps us out quite a bit. Yeah, if you haven't already subscribed to this show, go ahead and subscribe. We're pushing 12,000. Keep pushing that number of subscribers up on the YouTube channel. Thanks for listening. Rate, review, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Jess, great stuff from you as always. Go make Henry some, some nighttime treats or something. He's not going crazy right now. But
yeah, I'll see everyone on Thursday. This is the last you'll hear me talk about Stanford and everyone's favorite person, Tommy Rees. And we are on to UNLV and what Notre Dame can do well against UNLV.
All right. Sounds good. We'll talk to you tomorrow. IB Nation Sports Talk.